Exposure and the breathing are helping. Certain the weightlifting is helping now that I'm able to do that again. It stops me from being able to become anxious. I'm not healthy. I'm still running only at about 50%. And I'll do anything to fix this.
He holds 26 world records for achievements that for most people seem impossible and dangerous.
The cold is my teacher. To me, it's like God.
He might well be one of the most unique humans currently alive.
Wim Hof is changing scientists' understanding of how the body works.
I created a method. The components are breathing, mindset, and cold.
Wim Hof, the Iceman.
Hi guys, I'm Wim Hof, and every time I go into the unknown through my podcasts, exploring life into the depth, breaking the ice to go where nobody has gone before.
You're listening to the Wim Hof podcast, a Monk Studios original.
And on my side, my son Enam. He's here to keep me on track, which he's not able to do, by the way, but he will try it, and together we got a great chemistry. And we got Anne, our producer. She makes things really work.
Today's guest is Dr. Jordan B. Peterson, a professor of psychology at the University of Toronto and a clinical psychologist. He began to receive widespread attention in 2010 for his views on cultural and political issues. He's a successful author and has sold over 4 million copies, and his new book, Beyond Order, 12 More Rules for Life, was an instant #1 on the New York Times bestseller list when released this March.
So, I asked the team of Jordan to do this podcast with you because you told me, like, after the last encounter you had on his daughter's podcast together with him, that you guys had a couple of things in common. And I was like, you guys have a couple of things in common? What are you talking about?
Yeah,
but can you say something about it?
It's kind of strange, it almost looks like. But we met on a sub level. Like, he's the voice of the depth. He's the voice of so much what is going on, only he gives it the voice. And that's why so many people love it, love to hear him. And sometimes he is even, you can't understand his speed, his knowledge. But what is most intriguing is the depth where he comes from. It's old wisdom, and it comes in a new way to us. And I recognize that. And then talking about science, they say I'm not a scientist, but I'm a digger, and I've been digging as deep as the ancestral genetical codes and proteins is where we came together. He understood where I come from the field work of 40 years of field work outside in nature, and he did clinical research for 40 years.
Right.
And that is coming together like two hands, and they understand each other from the depth.
So I thought it was a great guest to invite, because as you guys had something in common after your last encounter.
Oh yes, last time and that was the first time I met him in a speech. I recognized his soul. He's a rock. He is the voice of the depth coming to us. And his physical health, maybe there, but physically also, he is a rock. And I'm good in that, to bring that back, the physical part. You know, the cold and the breathing, that's all physical. So let knowledge and knowledge of the physiology come together. That is what is going to happen. So I made him a poem about the Jordan River, biblical. It goes deep. It goes there at the shores of Petra, which is the stone temple.
Well, that's great timing, because Jordan is here, guys.
There he is. At last time we met in 21st of December, we did this breathing. And I'm curious if you kept on exercising that month just to see the physiological reactions therefrom within your physiology.
So yes, I probably did the breathing exercises for 2 weeks after we first talked, and then as well as the cold exposure in a shower.
Wow.
And then I stopped for about a month, and then I started again, and so I've been doing it regularly now, every day, twice a day, for the last 2 months. But I'm not sure I'm doing it right. So what I do is in the shower, twice a day, I expose myself to cold water for 30 seconds while I'm breathing out and in 30 times. Then I breathe all the way out. Then I hold my breath, and I seem to be able to hold my breath for about 60 seconds, although I'm trying to push that. And I do that twice a day. So does that seem about right?
Yes, and we can tune more. I thank you for prolonging the discipline. And I got great respect for you, and it accumulated through the months because I did not know who you were before. I heard it of my wife that you were a very renowned person in the world, talking about great subjects into the depth, and but that once I began to psychically get to know you. It only grew from there, and I see, you got your hardships. You are a person. You are in the world, and they say here in the Netherlands, high trees catch a lot of wind, and that's what you did. It is very courageous what you did. So I made a poem just to show my respect for you as according to what I feel. And this is the way I wrote it down this morning. The Jordan River, son of Peter, the gate to the heavens and back. It must have been a long journey, working the stones of wisdom, past the callous of your hands. Rest, your mighty being. More to come. No sentiment, just love. Corona times, no confusion. The crown. Where dwelleth thy presence, to be aware and lead. For the myth has cleared, like clouds by the sun. O son of Peter, the Jordan flows. This is what I wrote as what I feel for your presence and being.
Well, thank you. I certainly didn't expect that. And I would like you to send that to me by email if you would.
Yes, sir.
It's much appreciated.
Wim, I love it how you wrote down this poem on a piece of paper that on the other side seems to be your grocery list.
Grocery list? Yes. The best things, they come up spontaneous. You don't know where. It's on toilet paper, but, it changes the history. And that's the way it goes by epiphanies.
Yes, and you have to write them down when they occur, or you miss losing them.
Exactly. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I have to get up in the middle of the night sometimes. Not so much lately, but when I'm actively writing, because I'll think something through, and then I know if I don't get up and write it down that, you don't remember everything. That's to say the least, and so you lose it, and you have to catch those things when they happen. You said about bravery, and people comment to me about that fairly often, but I'm loath to accept that terminology because I think partly because of my training as a clinical psychologist, I believe I have the facility to detect future trouble. And so the reason that I've said the things I've said, say politically, is because I think that not saying them will cause a lot more trouble than saying them. And so it's more like what I think of as properly placed fear than it is bravery. I talked to this girl yesterday who is a refugee from North Korea. She has a very harrowing story, to say the least. And she wrote a book called In Order to Live. And her name is Yoonmi Park. And she talked to me about North Korea, and then she talked to me about going to Columbia University. And she said she wasn't able to freely speak her mind in North Korea or at Columbia University, which was very distressing to hear. But, you know, I asked her what she thought contributed to the rise of the totalitarian state in North Korea at the individual level, and she said that it was people's unwillingness to say what they thought. They kept quiet when they should have said something. And that produced a catastrophe, and it's not like that's the only place where that's happened. And so that's how I view my impulse to speak. It's not courage, it's properly placed fear. I hope that's the case anyways.
Sounds great. I remember riding my bike through Amsterdam after I had been on television showing for the first time in medical history to voluntarily being able to deeply influence into the autonomic nervous system, which was considered to be outside of the will of humans, and the innate immune system after taking bacteria injected within me. And that came into the journal, that is the news. And I thought the other day, riding my bike through Amsterdam, I saw these images, like a gunshot with a silencer on the roof of a dangerous person that could jeopardize the institution of pharmacy, because there's a natural method to make people able to tap into the immune system, which was considered to be not done, and the autonomic nervous system. That means really deep, and that changes the perspective of what we as humans can do. And then at that moment, I saw that like Hollywood kind of images, and then a cleaning party popping a bullet in my head. This was the image I got, and it's like fear. But then I said, no. I'm not going to succumb to that fear. I'm going to keep on going, because I will not be able to live with that fear, and silence myself and listen to, we're sorry, I maybe woken up a big giant here or something. No, I don't want to live by fear. I live by the right to know what is my soul, and pass that on to my children and to everybody else in the world.
So, Jordan, do you recognize this? Have you ever felt unsafe?
Well, it's actually happened. So, I've been attacked a lot online. That's not in public, but we'll get to that. I've been attacked online constantly, and it's very unpleasant. I've watched people who become the target of moderate-sized Twitter mobs, let's say, of 20 to 30 people, commenting very negatively about something they've said, and sometimes attempting to threaten their livelihoods, especially if they're professors, sometimes if they're journalists. And, people are very likely to react with high levels of fear and guilt and shame, and to backpedal very rapidly and to apologize. And it's quite shocking to be the subject of an attack by a group of people, even if it's mediated online. In public, I've been in the center of very agitated demonstrations on university campuses in particular, and that's exceedingly stressful. I don't particularly show how stressed I am in those situations. I'm on high alert in terms of my attention and watching everything. And I've been in relatively extreme situations emotionally as a clinical psychologist, so I'm somewhat used to that. But after a particularly threatening demonstration at Queen's University, there was 250 of us sitting inside a building that was quite a lot like a church. It had rows of seats and stained glass windows along the side. I was speaking there with a law professor, and as I said, there was about 250 people in the audience and the speakers up front, and there was a mob outside, and they climbed up on the stained glass windows and pounded on them non-stop.